All right, here we are. We're going to see how much I can screw your minds up. Based on history, probably lots. In fact, though, what we're going to try to do is go into our favorite place, Elvenar, and we're going to do what everybody hates, the Spire. Spire is going to give us a terrible, terrible experience, but we're going to see if we can dominate her this week and prove that we can be the better of the two. That being you and I against the Spire being one of the two. We're going to beat the Spire. Boy, I'm really going to have to think about what I'm going to say because this all sounds stupid as hell. But it does kind of work. So, first thing you want to make sure is you have your Fire Phoenix. You know, we all say feed the bird. I don't. This is your preference. Initially, when I start the Spire, I do not do any combat. I cater. I'm going to show you that way because it's my belief that you're just wasting troops. You won't waste many of them on the first section of the Spire, the entryway, but you also won't spend very much in goods or coin or supplies. And that's the way I prefer to go, is just catering the lower levels. And I'm going to show you my way of catering those, which may help you have better chances where you aren't going to have to redo things after 3 tries or, heaven forbid, spend diamonds. So, well, we're going to see that we can do that. I don't claim that it's perfect, but it has worked pretty well for me now that I've come across it. Second, we'll go into the second tier, which is mostly going to be catered to, although we may occasionally use combat. Once that comes up, we're going to be thinking about making sure we have our Fire Phoenix on, and we have our Dwarven Armorer, and maybe an Unleashed unit upgrade, or whatever other kind of combat buildings we're going to have. Now, I find that since the Spire starts on Sunday, and I do catering for the first level and most of, if not all of the second level, I've got all of Sunday, all of Monday, and usually at least the first part of Tuesday before I might think of doing combat. So generally, if I start this at the beginning of the tournament, it's also in for where I might need it for the last 1 or 2 rounds of the Spire in the second segment, the main hall. Now, when we get to the laboratory, all bets are off as far as catering, because catering just costs phenomenal amounts. And granted, the combat costs phenomenal amounts as well, but there are ways to do combat that will minimize your losses, hopefully, as they have for me. There was a video we had that had been put into chat, and of course, I think a lot of you never saw it because it just scrolled off with 100 other things beyond it, where we were talking about it, and I wish it had been kept. I can't get anybody to come up with it who'd originally posted it, and I'll be darned if I can find it on YouTube. So I'm just going to try my best to recreate it here for you. That being the case, hopefully you'll gain some of the wisdom I did from it, and be able to do the Spire so that it's a little easier for you, and you'll have less losses of troops, less losses of goods, and less losses of your sanity, because the Spire can really drive you crazy. Okay, so here we are. The Spire has reappeared, and let's go right in. Now, as you know, there are 3 segments of the Spire: the gateway, the high halls, and the laboratory. The gateway, or the entryway, as I sometimes forget and call it, is just these first 4 that are right here, and then we can as well as the next tier, the next tier, and the next tier. So there's 4 tiers of 4 in each of these 3 segments. I find that up until the high halls, things are relatively easy. I hope everyone's finding them that way, because honestly, these are the ones that are not that difficult. Once we get into the second and third tiers, then yes, things are more complicated. But these, hopefully, everybody is going through pretty smoothly. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. I am going to go over kind of what my concept is for catering, because I think that's important later on. Not so much right now, but later on. So as I mentioned earlier, I do cater the first segment entirely while we're in here. So we're going to do that through the diplomatic convince stage, assuming the computer lets us do it. There we go. Now I do what I call the pattern, and this is my idea of how to try to have some consistency. I don't know if Inno built this in, or if it's just a matter of statistics that I'm using something that is it follows a kind of conventional repeating status. So I've simply taken the options we have in their order. So I start with the coins that are available, and then the supplies, and then the magic dust, and then I repeat. And this is the pattern. So the pattern is to go through this. Now there will be more to this in a moment as we get into more deeper things. So let's see what we do with this. I've knocked 3 off right, well, 2 off right in the first place. We've got 2 left that we don't have any idea about, other than that one of them is going to be a supplies. Now, if we follow the pattern's going to be that we start with the first available thing and go to the next, except we never duplicate. So if we'd still had a coin left and there was a coin here, we obviously wouldn't put a coin in because we already know a coin doesn't work there. But we do know that the coin's out and this is in, so we'll go with this pattern. But we come to here at the end where that doesn't work, and we already know that this one's not a supply, so we're going to make that a dust because that's a guarantee. We know that one's going to work. Now, this was a chance because we knew one of these was a supply and the other wasn't. So we went, and in this case, it's actually backwards. But we still got that within 3. And, you know, the thing I want to point out here, too, is I'm doing these because, to me, 16,000 planks is nothing. Now, granted, these are some decent amounts of coin and supplies when you keep racking them up over and over again. But we're not going to worry about that too much because these are quickly replenished. I'd like to think that for all of us here, if you've just collected everything and you have the good number of residences and a good number of warehouse or workshops, that you're coming up with plenty of these. You shouldn't have to go into instance for these from the Spire. If you are, then you may need more residences or more workshops to balance things out, same as you would if you were running out of supplies when you're trying to make troops, or make orcs for that matter. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to follow the pattern, see what it does to us in the first place. Now, in this case, we've only got 1. But we're back to the pattern here, and this tells us a couple interesting things. First of all, we know that we only have 2 left, and we have 2 of those already on here. So we know that the first one is not going to be the coin, because it's already been used. So we go planks, coin, but then this one is not the planks, and it only leaves us the coin, and we go plank. And then this one wasn't the coin, so we take that again. Now, some of you will find that when you get into sentient goods, you start being concerned about the choices, and in fact, what you'll really be concerned about is when we get into where it'll want orcs, or seeds, or mana. Then you may want to, under certain circumstances, if you're in a chapter and you're really desperate for those items, particularly in the higher up tiers, you may want to play it safe and go with combat where you're just losing troops potentially, as opposed to the things that may be more expensive for you. If you can't afford 3,700 of a sentient good, though, then I'm worrying about your production capabilities. So I just go through this way. Now, this time, we still have all three of these available. We know that one of these has got to be supplies because it's going to the wrong person, but there's two of these, so this makes this part easy because there's only the three and the other two are already done, so we know this has to be the supply one. So that leaves us two things that have to be something else, one of which has to be the moonstone. So we're going to do coin and moonstone because that's in the pattern going left to right. And there you go. That takes them all. Now here, see, if you were trying to gather orcs, this still isn't a huge amount of orcs like it would be in later segments, but you might want to use combat. I never do in these first levels. I just don't feel that's a large enough number. Now we've gotten rid of the gum, the tree gum, and we know once again that we've got two of these items, the supplies and the orcs. We don't want to duplicate those, but we also know if we follow the pattern, we're going to put coins in here, supplies in here, and oops, that can't work because we can't do orcs because we already know that's there. So let's go and swap these two like this, and that gives us different places for the options that can be where we're knowing that we've got one place that's got to be filled. In this case, they were in the one was right for supplies, but not for the orcs, but we get it within the third. Now, a lot of you are probably saying, well, I've got to take all three for each of these that you've done so far. Well, it doesn't always work that way, because sometimes you'll get it in the first try, particularly on this very first segment. You'll get it on the first try, because these are really simple. But for me, sure, I'd love to do every one of them on the first try, but that's not really likely. Even with the pattern here and everything working out well for us, there's almost always going to be a second time that you're going through in most of these. Now here we only have two things left. That's interesting. We have one of the two, so we know this one's going to have to be supplies, period. And the others, we're just going to follow the pattern and then see what that gives us. And in this case, it didn't work. It went the opposite way, and sometimes that'll happen. But we still did this within three because we knew where we were. And partly the pattern, I find, if it doesn't fill things in for you, it at least usually reveals what's available. And you're saying, well, heck, I just poke different things in when I feel like it's right. And that's where I think the problem is. If you don't follow some sort of pattern, it doesn't have to be my pattern. You could go the opposite way or something, but there's a consistency in doing this pattern this way that gives you a chance statistically to see what options are there. If you just go kind of guessing on a gut instinct, unless you got really good gut instincts, that's probably not going to really work for you. Here, if we do the pattern, we can't start with coin, even though that is the first one because we've already used coin. So we're just going to pop like this. These all work out because we don't have any duplications. And we got rid of a few of them. And we know that this one now is supplies. And we know that this one, since it's not supplies, since it's already been there, is a coin. So that's a gimme. And that one's done. We happen to have a nice little bonus there. And this time, the pattern didn't work for us. Now, I would suggest you never use diamonds on this because that's just a waste of diamonds. They're very valuable. use them on something like expansions or magic residences or magic workshops, because to buy them or upgrade them. I would rather go into a second round of this, which this early in the Spire doesn't usually happen to me, but it does on occasion. So you kind of have to live with your losses along with your wins, because that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. Now we're back to 2 again, and we already have those 2 represented up here, so we know that all we have to do is just do the one that isn't the one that shows up on the other on the list. So we just do the opposing sides. Follow the pattern. We've got 2 left. We're going to still follow the pattern. Now, this one is actually kind of a question thing. Do you follow the pattern in the sense that you did the first 2 things before, and then you hadn't used this, and this should be the next part of the pattern, or this would be the first part of the pattern? Well, I've never really figured out a good way to look at that one. However, I always just basically go with my rule, which is to follow the pattern, because that way I don't beat myself up if I do the wrong thing. If I do this and win, it's great, but if I do it and lose, then I didn't really technically go to the beginning of the pattern again and start. And in this case, I did lose. This is going to be a horrible video, because normally I breeze through this much better than this, so this is showing you about how bad things can be for me. So I don't know that that's going to be very inspiring to anybody. And I should point out too that, well, and really quickly here, these obviously are just telling me that the opposite thing is whatever, so I can fill it in. I should mention though that, these, oh good, I finished something in the event. These are my paths through here. You're all going to come up with your own. That's one of the things about the game that's great, is that there is no one strict path that you follow to do things the right way. You're going to follow whatever path you like. I'm trying to show you some options, and hopefully these will work for you. Now, I, as a general rule, don't spend time instants on speeding up in the Spire, because I use time instants to make troops exclusively because I want troops, and I burn them up by going up in the higher levels of the Spire and the tournament, because I go pretty far in the tournament. But we're going to scrap that today because I'm trying to show some things, so we're going to use time instants to speed ahead. So we still don't have really terribly expensive costs here. These add up, but again, you should have tons and tons of coins and supplies. Really, if you've got decent residences and workshops, unless you're using them on something else just before you're doing this and you didn't replenish them, then you need more residences or workshops, because these should always be in abundance. Or at least that's the way it's always worked best for me. We fill in the pattern. We got rid of the first couple. We actually know that these out of the 4 are the only 3 that we're going to count on. So that helps us in one way, because we know we're not going to use supplies. So that cuts things down. If we do the pattern, it actually works out so that we don't duplicate anything. And now it's actually even easier, because if we were to do, if we just look, we can see there's 2 works here, but not 1 here. We're in the wrong person, so 2 supplies, 2 coins, or 2 crystal, 2 coins. So we really just put these in the right place where you can't miss. That one was just shown to you what to put in. So again, we're following the pattern. Patterns left us with just 2 things here. This one's already told to us, and we know that we can't have a coin duplicate again because that wouldn't do anything for us, so that one's pretty much given to us also, and we finish that one up. Now, mind you, if anybody has a better plan on this, I'd love to see your video. If you have something where you're doing everything in 1 or 2 rounds on this, then hey, I want to know what you're doing. But I'm just trying to pass along my suggestions on what's working for me, because some of you have told me that you just still have great problems with the Spire, and I'm hoping that this will help you at least somewhat. Now we're going to go back and do what we were doing before, but we're not going to do Gumtree here because obviously it's already worked in there and that's not passing. But otherwise, I'm going to follow a pattern and see where that leads us. And that actually worked and gave us everything. So we get rid of the coins. We've got 3 of the 4 that we know we need, but there's 4, and this one could be the 4th one. So we really just probably are better going through and putting coins in, except these 2 now would be duplications. So I'm just going to swap them. It's one of the rare things I do that doesn't follow the pattern, but we know those aren't going to follow the pattern that way, and this is often gets you at least 1 of them. Now we're left with just 2, and we know what each one is, so we can fill in the scrolls from over there and the supplies here, and that's a gimme, and it's done. And we got another segment of this done. We're going to go spend freaking 7 hours. Man, that's a lot of troops. Anyhow, next up. Now, here I was telling you, you're not going to run out of coins, and I have, but normally I wouldn't, because I wouldn't be doing multiple, other than the first 2, which are you know, there's 10-second break between the 1 gate there. Normally I wouldn't be doing that many rounds of the Spire, because I would have stopped back here when I had the 3 hour, and I would have waited for 3 hours and then done that, and in that amount of time I would have replenished from just my 3 hours cycle on my residences to get more coins, and that would have filled me back up. And then similarly, getting up to this one would have been 7 hours past that, so a total of 10 hours. So I wouldn't have run out of coins. I am here because I'm just upping the process of things. So going back in with better run of supplies, and I may be low on supplies too, actually, now that we've mentioned it, but we're going to let this roll for the moment. So we put the pattern in. This knocked out a couple things and a couple here, so we're down to just 2. That helps. We know this one's got to be coin, and we're just going to follow the pattern. And that got us another one, but found one didn't follow, but that only had 1 option when we were done, so that was easy enough. Now this one, following the pattern, actually put in the opposites for these, so we know those will pass. Didn't do for these, but these are both shrooms, which is not what you usually would have guessed, that you had that many shrooms coming off. We had 4 out of the 5 were the shrooms, but that's the way it worked. And we still did that without having to, you know, go through a second round of things. We still got it within the 3 tries. And I do need more supplies, so let's do that real quick. And again, you know, I would have enough supplies in a normal situation because I would have replenished and capped things off, because everything would have filled up. I generally find with my residences and my workshops that I either come close to or top over my limit and have to take a few extra things as knowledge points to knock the coins down, or take some things out of a wholesaler at the trader to knock down the supplies from being maxed out. But that's, I've got a lot of residences here, and I've got 10 leveled workshops, but I'm also not using any spells. So some of you I know don't have this many workshops, but you use spells. Whatever works for you, but you got to have something where you know you're going to have enough to do these without using the instance like I am, because, like I say, I don't do that at all, because I usually do it in a different time fashion. Some of you do these all within the kind of time span I'm looking at right here. You just go right in and get everything done by using the time instance to go past each stage. And that's fine if you want to do that. I just am so compelled to try to put all of my time instance into building troops that I really don't like to waste them on anything else. Now we're back here with pattern. Remember, we don't want to start the pattern with this simply because that's where it started. So we're going to start with this one, and that works out because there's no duplications. And now we've got this one we know has to be a coin because these other two aren't. And this one we know has to be an elixir because the other one's not. And this one we know can't be either of these two things, so it has to be silk. So that kind of worked out nicely. Oh, except I'm an idiot because I put the coin down here when it should have actually been a silk. Now see, that one's my mistake. And that'll happen too, and that's because I'm trying to rush, and that'll happen to us. That's the thing about this too. This, and what I'm going to talk about in combat, is going to take a little extra time. If you want to rush through these, real life doesn't always give us the luxury of time. But if you're going to rush through these, you are going to probably have some losses. It's inevitable. I really don't think you're going to have any choice when it comes down to the matter. These worked out really well. These pretty much told me where they were because of what I had in other things. This one tells me what's left because I can't duplicate, and that only leaves this. So that one's a gimme. And now we come up to the big boss here. Now these are still not huge amounts here. These are obviously concerning amounts, but again, I don't think they're that bad. I really have to stop saying this. I'm repeating that like way too many times, but I just can't emphasize it enough. So this one we know is not supplies, so it's shrooms. This one's not shrooms, it's supplies. This one we're just going to go with the pattern and say it's supplies. But it wasn't. But see, at least I have somewhere to go rather than just making a wild guess. Following the pattern at least gives me some satisfaction that I'm following some routine that may make sense. Now, I want to point something out. I went through these, and we have not used this once. There wasn't enough room in the first round to put it in, and we lost one thing, but because we lost one here too, we still haven't put this in. So we know that there's these three in there. We do not know that there are more supplies or if there's more shrooms. We don't really know. So I'm keeping this in the back of my head because this time we're going to see what plays out. And I have a dilemma. It's obviously not this, but it could be any of these three things. And we don't really have any way to know. Now, if I follow the pattern, I'm just going to start at the beginning. And the other thing would be, I could also say, well, I've never used this, I should try it. But, as I've said before, I'd rather beat myself up about following the pattern than not following the pattern. Because if I lose by not following the pattern, I just really feel like I'm abandoning the only sense of statistical consistency that I've been trying to use. And in this case, it didn't work for us. And we'll never know which of the three it was. Yeah, this is going to be a horrible video. Normally, honestly, I have a much better time in the Spire than this. This is not a good day in the Spire. This is a bad day. But saying that, I'm still not, I'm not spending diamonds. I'm not, with one exception, or a couple exceptions, I haven't, had to go into a second round of things. It's still not bad. This one's not bad, of course, because this one's all laid out for us and telling us you still do the opposite ones. Got a mystery chest that appeared, so we're going to have to magically hop down to that. Doesn't want to draw me down. And then we've got to spend more time instance. Darn it. This takes us to the next segment. So we have passed the gateway. We're now in the high halls. This one is where you have to kind of start making decisions, because things are getting a little more expensive, 49,000 still I don't think is bad, so I tend to cater more than I do troop things. But it is 11,000 seeds, and if you're really into something where you're in a chapter that is heavy on seed necessities and you're struggling with that, you might want to actually go ahead and do combat, just in this instance, regardless of how small the other numbers are, just so you save seeds. But that's a personal choice. I would still not do it, certainly if I'm not in a chapter and I'm just, between chapters. And we're going to follow the same procedure. Now here I'd be duplicating, so we're going to swap that. We know this is the opposite thing. So that leaves me one that I didn't get. And unfortunately, didn't get that in the first round of tries. Yeah, this isn't as smooth as it goes for me. So this is probably a bad example. And you're all going to say, well, hell, I'm not going to do this because Dashell lost tons of stuff, but it could be a lot worse. This one we're doing, we know that those two aren't coins, but one of them has to be, so it has to be that one. Otherwise, we're going to follow the pattern, but we don't want either of these, so we have to start here, and then we know that seeds. So it can't be either seeds or this. So again, the pattern will be the earlier one. And we know it's got to be this because it has to be somewhere. So the only one, and actually this then has to be this because the seeds have to be. So we got that one because of the clues. Pattern. I'm going to try the pattern again. See what that yields. We have two left. They're telling us what they are. They're the opposites of what we just did. That gets that one done. Got a mystery chest somewhere, but it's not on this level, so we'll worry about that later. Back following the pattern. We only know we have supplies. We only have these three now, so we follow the pattern, and that gets us two of them. And this one could be anything because, we've got these two, and it's not either of these, but we're going to follow the pattern, and it works this time. Now this, we still didn't get one. We're close, But of course, close doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of like, as they say, close doesn't count except in horseshoes and hand grenades. So probably no point in even saying that it was close. We're down to 3. One of them has to be a scrolls. If I do this following the pattern, the scrolls is going to duplicate there. So we're just going to do this little trick. I know this has to be here somewhere, but we're in the second round. This tells me that this is over here, and I know that that scrolls is missing, so I did that. Now it's kind of risky to do this a little ways, but there weren't many options going on here and weren't many here. So knowing that this had to be somewhere, I gave myself the chance to have other things checked through, so they would tell me whether or not they were one of the others. They'd either be the right thing or they'd tell me it was the other thing, and then whatever wasn't left I'd know was the scrolls. So that one is a little trick that you can use sometimes that'll work out for you. And we got some diamonds, so that's not bad. And we got to put more instance in. I'm going to beat myself up about this, but particularly because this video is not turning out as directly suggestive that this is a good pattern for you. Feel like I'm really letting you down here. And we'll do some supplies while we're in there. Again, normally I'm not doing this with supplies and coins because I'm spreading these out over time. But for the purposes of doing this, I want you to be able to see everything we're doing as we're going through. All right, back to the pattern. And we got, again, I'm going to do the pattern, and that leaves me without a dust, but we know that's somewhere, so I'm going to remember the dust, and I've just the one left, and I know that's got to be dust because it told me it was somewhere, so that made me work that out. This is not going to be a good start because we have everything left here, and we got rid of one of these, but that's not really a great help. So we're going to run everything through the pattern and cross our fingers because this is not a good start. But that's good. We got rid of 4 of those, and the pattern is what did that. But now we're left with one where we've got a 50-50 choice. We're going to follow the pattern and hope it works for us. And it didn't. But again, what are you going to do? You could always, do combat with these. And it depends. If you're making tons of troops and you aren't worried about it, then don't listen to me. Do the whole thing with troops. Some of you, if you're doing manual combat, I should point that out. Anyone that's doing manual combat, like Clouseau does so well, that he's so high in the tournament rankings and everything, and I'm sure he does everything with combat here in the Spire as well. But he does manual combat, and he knows how to do it well enough that he has low losses, very low losses, and I envy him his skill in that because I just don't manage to do it. If you can do manual, though, do that. But it's not been something I either have been able to pick up well and know which troops are good against which troops, the details of that, nor have I been willing to spend the time, because doing manual combat does take an exceptionally significant more amount of time than going through an auto fighting or catering, and I just really don't want to put that time into the game. I love the game, but I don't want to be playing it constantly or very, 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 very often in the day. I do want to try to do other things with my life even if it's just playing another game. Now, this one we know this has to be dust because it's in the other two. We know that we've got a scrolls somewhere between these two, and since there's dust and scrolls are the only thing left, these both have to be scrolls. So that's easy enough, and that one works out. This one, the pattern got rid of a few things, and it told us what to do with these. Just take the opposites, and we get that right away. So that works out pretty nice. Now, we knocked out a few of these. That's good. Remember, we didn't use this in the first round. We didn't have enough spaces, and we got 4 of these, so we're going to probably have something that's not here again. So what we're going to do is we can't do the pattern and start with the coin. So I'm going to start with these, which means we don't have the coin, but we know that the coin is somewhere. So we're going to do these. Keep the coin in mind. We know the coin wasn't here. It's got to be one of these 2 other spaces. And we know that these 2 have to go somewhere. So basically, we have to try to figure out which go where. We're going to try to follow the pattern again, because that would work. We'd have rubble, or marble, and no offense to Barney Rubble there, and do it like this, and we'll see if that works. And it does. And the pattern worked out for us again. It won't always. There's nothing 100% in this game, really. Got that. Now, we've still got 2 more on this mid-level. We're halfway through the entire Spire. We're halfway through the high halls. We're going to look at these and make sure where we're at, because now we're at a point where it may be worthwhile to do combat rather than catering. I still try to cater throughout the laboratory, but there will be times that it'll be better to do combat. Once we get into the laboratory, we're going to definitely do combat all the way through because the costs are just too high. Now here, I don't think these are too bad. I'm probably going to have to refill up. In fact, I'll probably do that right before we start this anyways, on coins and supplies, because I'm doing this rapidly without giving myself the delays between that are normally here. The only thing that would be much is seeds, and 11,000 seeds for me right now is not anything. Even if I were in a chapter, I don't know that I'd worry about that too much, but I'm not going to worry about it now because I'm between chapters, and I've got, I got seeds. I got almost 135,000, so I can live with 11,000 seeds going out every couple times we're doing things in there. Meanwhile, though, so we're going to do the pattern as we have been. We're going to follow the pattern, skipping the coin, putting it at the end. Now, here, before we do the pattern, we're going to look at what we've got. We've got coin there, but not here. And we know it's got to be in one place because that's what it's telling us. We're going to put the coin there. This one is not the coin or the supplies, which means it has to be the moonstone. And then this one is not the coin or the moonstone, so it has to be supplies. So that one pretty much told us exactly how it laid out. Now here we've got coins and crystal. Not enough room to do everything, so we got to keep the coin in mind. This one's going to be a little tough, but we know that we've got coins somewhere, even though this isn't telling us anything. And we know that this one can't be coins, so it's crystal, so that actually works out so that we know what's going on there too. And we'll do the same thing with pattern. We're down to 3 possibilities. Here, these all are things that are working, so we know that we don't have any coins in here, so we can take that out of the mix. We know that these 2 were shrooms, and we're going to put that in there. We know that this, it has to be somewhere else, and it can't be in the same one. So this has to be the ink, and this one then has to be the seeds. So again, it told us exactly what we needed to know to finish that off properly. And yeah, that's where that is. Following the pattern. Knocks down a bunch of stuff for us. We know this one is going to be supplies. We don't have any other clues other than we know that one of these is going to be an orc, which kind of throws us out of the pattern, because if we do the pattern, we'd normally start with seeds and then go to the marble. So I'm going to take a chance. We know it's not supplies in either case. I'm going to take a chance and go in following the pattern, at least in the rotational sense. We're going to do orcs there, and we're going to do seeds there. And that one wasn't it. Might have been both orcs. We'll never know. It's the thing that kind of gets me, is that if you do miss, you never really know. It doesn't tell you which one you missed, even though you can't go back and do anything about it anyway. So you just have to let it go, or it'll drive you nuts. This one, we know that this one's supplies. This one is anybody's guess between these two 50-50. We're going to go with the first one because that's the way that the pattern works, and it works for us this way. That also gave us another mystery chest. And we're back to spending more money, more time. Got that 7. That gets us through the gate. These still aren't bad. They're getting to be a higher number, but they're not bad when you consider how much supplies you're generally taking in. And for me, it makes more sense than the troops. This is again just following the pattern. This has left us down with 2 things. We know this one's going to be bismuth. This one can't be bismuth, but it can be either of these 2. We're going to follow the pattern, and it works for us. Got a mystery chest somewhere down here. We're going to take that, and we're going to take the one that's up at the top. Follow the pattern. This time we don't have as many things going in, so this will be a little more interesting. This one, we know we've got mana here, and we know that we've got supplies and coins. This one can't be coins again, so it's got to be supplies, and this one's coins. So that one told us what it was, and that worked out nicely. Now this one, we're out of seeds. This one can happen. You know, we've used a bunch of seeds so far, and this is, even if you had seeds, you might not want to do 11,000 seeds. We've done it a few times already, but if you wouldn't, this is where we're going to not just want to do combat, but we have to do combat, because there's nothing I can do to replenish seeds unless I just sit and wait. And since we're doing this video now, I'm not going to have you sit and wait. Now, here's what I want to tell you about combat. And this is the video I wish I'd been able to come up with, because the guy who did the video that we looked at was very clear about it and made it seem very simple. And I hadn't really gathered this before. I kind of figured, you know, when you look at these things, that the more of these things that are colored you have, the better you're off. So you don't want to do the ones that just have 2. You'd love to do the ones that have 5. Sometimes the most you'll have is 4. So you have to make a guess on which is best. But none of the rest of these are as good as this one. But what he pointed out is there's colors to these. And if you look above where I'm at, there's like a color chart for this. And it tells me that the blue is about even. The purples and the greens have 4 out of 5. So they're really strong. But we don't even have any greens. So this is where, when we change from the barracks to the training grounds to the mercenary squad, we can see a difference. So if we go back to the same character here, which is, you know, we're starting out with the sword acrobat, which is our infantry, our light infantry. And if we look at this, we see that rather than just having 4 out of 5, he has 5 out of 5 for the purple, and that's going to be our best choice. So we're going to put all 5 in that way, auto fight, and that's going to go right through on the first wave and right through on the second wave. We're going to go up here to the big boss. We could do this one, but I'm just going to do this by combat anyways, because I want to make sure you get an idea of how this combat works. This is mostly what I wanted this video to be about, was to show you this combat technique. I think most of you probably have catering. The idea with the pattern that I use may be different than what some of you are doing. If that helps, I'm glad I was able to impart that to you. But let's look at this again. Now here we have some that are better than others, but still one stands out above all the rest. So we want the heavy melee units. The red in this are about even. There's nothing we can do about that. The blues, though, we can try to find the higher blue. Now, in this case, the blue is going to be the Orc Warrior, and I don't have enough of these. I've been not making these up as much. I won't even go into the details. It would take too long to explain. I am going to go, for the purposes of all of this, and just use 3 of these full fellows, and then we'll just use the other 2 that are at least at rank 4 for the blues. And that'll get us through, so that's all we're really concerned about. Now I got to go through 12 hours. Oh, I have another mystery chest. Now we're in the laboratory. And this is me. We've got the laboratory to do, 4 of these. Now, you could cater in here, but the costs start to become prohibitive. Not so much with these, but these costs get to be outrageous. You know, I'm not going to give up 110,000 mana, even if I have a good amount. That's just crazy. And, you know, these are really starting to impinge on my supplies. Some of these, obviously, I've got 252,000 there, but 15,000 is going to take a hit on my Moonstone. So obviously I need to actually get into the trader and do some things, but I'm just not going to deal with these on the 3rd level, because not only are these amounts different, but the difficulty level is higher, and the pattern doesn't work as smoothly on the 3rd tier, where we're in the laboratory there, as it does on the first 2. So we're going to fight again. Here is our star. We're looking at yellows being the prime object. That's going to be doing the Banshee. So we're going to do 5 of that across the board. both waves. We come here. Look, this one doesn't even have anything. How bad's that? Now here's an interesting one. We've got nothing there and only one there, but this we've got all five in the next, and we've got 4 in this one. This one gives us options, and that's really good, because if we were to look, say, at this one, this would not be our first choice because we'd go with the 5s, obviously, rather than the ones that have just 4 like this. But this one, the combat units are about even in the yellow. And despite the fact that there's 4 of these, we don't have an edge where we would if there were blue or green. In these, the yellows have an edge. They're not about even. They're 4s, even though they're not 5s. And this one has the red about even, but since there's a red in there, we're going to take that because this gives us a higher red because it's got those four swords. So we've got the best chance with this one coming from the sorceress, and we're going to use that. Now, here we are with a little more straightforward one. This one again, even though there's more of the red, you know, there's not much we can do about them, but we can try to look for a better blue, which of course is going to be the same sort of thing I ran into before because I don't have enough orcs, and that's a problem I've probably got that nobody else has because, well, again, we won't get into that. And we'll do combat here. This one's got full. Now here's a dilemma for you. We've got these with one of each of the green and the blue, which are strong, and 3 of the yellow that are about even. Well, about even's not what we want. We want stronger stuff. This is a 5, but this is a 4, but it's got the higher ranged 4, where we've got four swords on the yellow and 4 swords on the blue. Even if we're missing one, this is really a stronger unit than this one as far as its comparison to the opposing troops. So we're going to use everything in that unit. And that one we had 3 rounds that we went through. All right. This one, we've got the same situation we had in the last one, pretty much. This one's got the green and the purple strong, but it has just about even on the blue, where we've got 2 of those. This has only green and blue, but they're both strong. I'm going to use this one, because I think this will be a stronger combination with those 2 4-sword units opposing the enemy than just 1 4-sword unit and about even. Or I should say 3 4-sword units and about 1 even. But still, I've got 4 4-sword units here. So that's why I'm going to try this one. And somewhere, I've got a chest again. There it is. Now these 2 are both maxed up. So let's see what we got here. This one's got the red and the purple at 4, and this one's got the purple at even. So that's kind of a given. And we'll take archers. Something to keep in mind too, whether you're doing manual combat or auto combat, the archers always go first. So whenever you have an option with archers, they are probably your best bet because they get initiative over everybody else, and that means they get the first shot at the enemy. So if it comes down to where these two would somehow have been evenly balanced, I'd have chosen the archers over the two, not just because of the colors, but because I know that they get the first shot. Now we don't have any clear-cut thing here. This one again, we've got one 4-star 4-sword green, one 4-sword purple, and then even for the blues, this one has 4-star blues and green, but no yellow. But I think this one's going to be stronger because it's got more 4 stars. So we're going to use all of these. But that one didn't work. I was probably wrong. So we will go with these. Which was the way to go in this case, because the 5-star was the best choice. Now, I should point out, too, that some people are very particular about going through these things, and they would be checking out what my squad size against the enemy squad size is, and they'll be checking out how my losses are when we go through each one of these. You can do that. You can be very analytical about this. I have great respect for the people that do that. I don't want to spend the time on it, personally. I go for a little more of a cumulative approach and just look at what patterns are working for me and stick with that. And generally, once I've found the pattern sticking, then I'm pretty satisfied and things work out well. But you'll find a lot of people that'll do statistically checking these things, and I don't know how you do this one statistically. It would be a bear. Probably even worse with my pattern theory. So this one's going to be our best bet. Not great, really. We've got some decent mage units, but we're just about even on the light melee, but there's just nothing else going on in any other options. So we're going to try that. And that one goes through 3 rounds, so that's good. That brings us to just 2 away. Burning through these time instants. Now we've got the 3 green there, which are high ranged, and it's about even here. We've got 3 4 stars and nothing else. Here we've got 2 4 stars, but 3 about evens. So this is going to be a stronger unit. And that's probably where I screwed it up on that one where I lost before. This one's clear cut. What do we got though? We've got blue and purple and green. We don't have much green, but we do have better purple this way, and we'd still have the green about even, so that's where we want to be. Let's go again. Now here, this one obviously is not going to be our choice, but we've got 4 here, 4 here, 4 here. We've got 3 4s, no 5s. This one, the blue, which is most common, is about even. That's probably not going to be the one we choose. This one's got a 4-star blue. This one's got a 4-star blue and one 4-star green, which is going to beat this one because this one is about even on the red. So let's choose the golems, the heavy ranged units. Now you notice I keep using the same unit. This isn't always going to be the way I do this. On occasion I will mix up which things I put in. But for the most part, these are all going to be pretty clear cut because of the colors that we're seeing here. What are strong against other things. You know, the more strength you have against the others is better. Here we've got yellow, so we want to have high strength in yellow, and we've got 3 swords in red, and then the purple's about even, and that's better than anything else we've got out of any of the other options. So we'll use all of those. Sometimes you may get something where you have those 3 different options on the line, and you may find that mixing a couple of those up will make for a better chance for you to make sure you go through. And this is the last segment of the laboratory. Only really got these 3, but it is 3 very different things. This one's probably not going to count. It is 3 4-stars, but we can do that good here, 3 4-stars. Plus we get a light ranged unit that's about even. This one isn't going to compare. So we're at the archers, and of course we know the archers actually have initiative, so they're going to be our best unit anyways. And look, we're 3 away. Here we don't have a 5 either. We've got the sorceress has 4, and the heavy ranged has 4. This one has 3 that are at our 4 sword, but we have 4 sword that are for the 3 that are here. Plus we have the mage unit, and this one we have about even for the ones where you have most. So the mage is clearly the mage, or the sorceress in this case, is clearly where we want to go. Now, if we go to the Banshee, she's got 5-star rather than 4-star. So that's going to kick things up. Here, this is going to be our best. We're going to look and see, and yeah, if we click it over into the training center units, we can take Cerberus instead of taking just the sword acrobat, the light melee, and we'll get a little better rather than having about even on the 2 blues and 4-star on the purples, the 3 of those. We're going to get 5-star on the purple and the about even, so that's going to be much better. That's where we want to be. And then this is the last one in the Spire. This one's going to be 3 rounds, or waves, I should say. 3 waves in the round. This one's got a clear-cut 5-star that's way above everybody else. He's got about even on the reds, which are our most populous thing, and he's got 2 blues that are 4-star. Let's see if we can come up with 3 blues. Well, normally we could, but I'm all out of orcs because of that, so we're just going to chance it with this. And it goes through. And I get the Dream Genie. So this is probably not a perfect explanation of using the colors in combat. It's probably not a perfect explanation of my idea of doing catering with a pattern. But hopefully it gives you some ideas, and hopefully those of you that are still having trouble with the Spire, these will give you an edge to make things a little easier. I don't have a lot of other suggestions otherwise. This is what works for me. There are a lot of other things out there you can try that people have talked about, but it's hard to find videos for auto combat. There's a lot of videos about manual combat, and manual combat will give you a chance to lose less troops, but it does take longer, and it You have to figure out how to actually do it. You have to know exactly which troops are best against which troops. So you're going to have to do a little studying and memorizing. If you want to keep doing auto combat, then this is a method to try. Hopefully this will work for you. If you have any questions, please get a hold of me. Otherwise, that is going to pretty much wrap us up for the day. So good luck to you all. Happy times in the Spire. Oh, and I should say one other thing. This combat pattern is not just for the Spire. It does work when you're going through provinces and through the tournament if you're doing auto combat. So if you find that you do better in the Spire with this combat style, please, please, please use that in your auto combat in the tournament as well, because that will help you and give you more consistency, more consistent wins. So, thank you.